the man behind the hustle and grind. This is pride, courage, determination, and perseverance. Welcome to No Luck's Given. Let's go ahead and open it up. Man, welcome back to the No Luck's Given podcast. This is episode 4. I'm here with my co-host, Brother Luck. I'm going to start calling him Brother Luck on the podcast. Chef Brother Luck. And now I got our special guest, Joe Flamm, in the building. If y'all don't know who the hell Joe Flamm is, y'all better look the man up. Top chef winner. Is that what you call a champion? I don't know what the hell to call it.
It's a winner.
Number 1. Hey, he's in the building. So welcome to the podcast, No Luck's Given.
Thank
How y'all
you.
doing?
Happy to be here, man.
Man, it's a beautiful day.
We got a lot going. This is our first time doing an additional person live with us, so this is kind of interesting. And
the podcast is getting grown.
hey, the podcast grown the hell up. No Luck's Given. So let's kind of open it up, man. What are we doing here tonight? Talk about it. We have top chef guests here, and we're doing a dinner. So I want to hear about the night. What's going on?
Yeah, you know, my thing was, I think it's amazing to share the talent that I get to experience when I'm traveling, and I try to bring that back to Colorado Springs because I think the locals need to feel that, right?
Yeah, they love it.
There's so many great chefs out there. So, you know, if you're looking to come to a dinner, you know, hit us up because this is a great community, and you know the people deserve it. So bringing Joe Flamm out tonight was amazing, and then Jay Gus is going to be a part of it, and this is going to be a great dinner tonight. We're going to have some fun.
I think it's one of the best things that comes out of that show is you have this instant network of chefs all over where it's like, you know, and you want to go visit. You want to see their restaurant as much as, like, you want to see their family. Like, this is a part of them, who they are. It's such an extension of their personality. So, especially when you're on the show with them, you can't just, like, look up somebody's restaurant. So it's like you're all telling each other about, like, what you do and where you work and what your place is like and what the vibe is. But it's like, you know, it's like somebody's describing the girl to you or something. You're like, okay. And then you see him, you're like, oh, shit. Yeah, like, this is banging. Like, you know. But so it's really cool to be out here, to be able to cook here. I love Colorado. I mean, it has a special place in my heart, especially
Because that was the season, right?
Yeah, and I've been coming out here for years. I got family out here. But I just love this place. I think it's so beautiful out here. And being from, you know, Chicago, being from a city kid, you come out here and you're like, this is not Chicago. This is not the Midwest. Like, this is not the Flatlands. Like, instantly, the second that plane, you know, touches down, you see the mountains. And it's like, man, special.
Yeah, man. Colorado has that stamp for sure.
Yeah, you know, you gotta really get into these mountains. There's something beautiful about what we're doing out here, and I think when you get to see that peak, and I'm never leaving.
Yeah, me neither, man. I love this place for sure, man. And for you to represent Colorado, we're representing Colorado Springs. You represent Top Chef Colorado, you know, the champions in the building. You know, I want to talk a little bit about the dynamic of Top Chef. You've traveled to Joe's restaurant. Joe's now returning back to, is this your first time here in the restaurant?
First time in Colorado
And then you
Springs.
just came back from the other restaurant too, Lucky, yeah?
Yeah. We went over and did some dumplings.
What you think about Lucky, real quick?
Nice, man. It's nice. Some great dumplings. Had a little tequila.
Yeah.
Did it right.
All right. Love it.
Hip-hop and kung fu.
Yeah, kung fu.
And then you come to this one, man. So talk about, for people who don't know Chef's restaurant, Chef Brothers Restaurants, he's got 2 restaurants. They have a completely different dynamic feel and operation about them. Talk about those differences and what you like about them, Joe.
I mean, you know, I think it's fun going to seeing a place like Lucky and just that casual, easy, approachable, you know, like rolling in there for lunchtime, seeing people in there, eating with their kids, hanging out, having a couple, you know, beers in the middle of the day. It's like, yeah, that's fantastic. And then seeing, you know, a little bit more formal dining room like this one, where it's kind of got that balance of like that neighborhood restaurant meets special occasion. And it's like, you know, without tiptoeing that line too far, I think is really, really nice and special about it. You can tell that, you know, this place really plays a part in this community.
Yeah.
And I think that's always the key to, like, you know, the great neighborhood restaurants, the great, you know, restaurants of a city are that, you know, you're a part of it as much as it's a part of you.
100%.
I always tell people 4 is my bougie side and Lucky's my ghetto side.
Yeah. It gives you both dynamics, though. Gives you more of an insight to really, like, who you are, you know, the pool of those 2 sides.
It's a good mix. A good mix.
Well, hey, man, I want to go ahead and hop into this week's topic, like, you know, and you guys have been through so much, whether it be the show, you know, entrepreneurs, business owners. So it's really insightful for me to ask these questions about, the struggles that we go through on this journey. So today's topic I want to talk about is a little bit about depression and how you manage it, your thoughts on it, and the things that you've gone through in your own personal life. Maybe open it up about that.
Yeah, I think it's more than just depression though, because depression is a very specific, disease that people deal with, myself included. But I think it's overall mental health.
Okay, yeah, that's,
what
that's
I mean?
a good way to.
And I think that's
open
something
this up.
because that could be anxiety, that could be the stress that you deal with. There's so many different outlets that come with protecting your mental health.
Yeah.
I had this conversation with Tina the other day, where I was like, I'm putting so much work into my mental health, and I'm talking about it, I'm sharing it, and I'm getting messages out there. I was like, but like I got to change my physical health. I need to start paying attention to my heart.
Yeah.
And how I'm feeling. So like for me, I've been on this workout kick where it's just like every day I'm doing 30, 40 minutes of cardio and trying to protect that. And then she throws it at me. She goes, "What about your spiritual?"
Yeah, there's the triangle, and most people are good at two, if not, maybe most time one of the three. But balancing those, how do you balance those, Joe?
I think it's hard. You're trying to balance that of your family, yourself, your business, and all of it. For me, it's trying to get more into my own health, being, working out more. I have a 1-year-old now, and I think
Congrats,
that
by
really
the way.
changes, your outlook on things, because you think, it's hard not to think like, okay, well, how many of your friends' weddings did you go to where their parents aren't there?
Right,
One of their parents
right,
isn't there, or,
right.
Graduations or whatever. So it's impossible not to think about that for me. Maybe it's just kind of the way I am. So that's a huge motivator for me to be like healthier, where I'm working out more, taking better care of myself, drinking less. But it's hard because then you're like, I got to focus on the restaurant. Everything should be driving the brand forward. Everything should be driving the business forward. Everything should be, all about growing all these things while they're hot and I can and push. And I think the scary thing is for us, and I'm sure it's across a lot of industries, is like having enough faith in yourself to say like, okay, I got to know what I can let go of now.
Yeah, that's
And
tough.
like, I heard it once described really well, as they said, it's like juggling a bunch of balls in the air.
Yeah.
And you got to know, sometimes you can't carry them all. It's like, which ones bounce back if you drop them? There's some, if you drop them, they don't bounce back. They're like, family's glass. You drop that shit, it's not bouncing back. It's broken, and you can't get that back. So that one's always got to stay in the air. How much can you drop your health before a point where it's not going to bounce back? How much can you drop your business to a point where it won't bounce back? And like that's, the idea of it. And that's something I think about a lot, is like, I just know me. I'm not going to do all three of them perfect. I know people do that shit.
Amen.
I'm not that. I wish I was.
It's
You know
tough
what
to
I mean?
do
Like,
it, man. Period.
But like, so it's like, what can I be the best at today? What can I focus on today? What can I at least do a little part of? So it's like, hey, maybe I'm not perfect, but, am I better than last year? Yeah, I think so. Am I better than 10 years ago? Fuck yeah. Am I better than 15 years ago? Like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
Like, I'm living a different life. So
It's big, man.
that's kind of how I look at it.
That's huge. I'll just go ahead and feed off of that. Chef talks about being better than yesterday.
Yeah.
And that's something that stuck out to me right there. But I'll just go ahead and reflect just personally. I know that triangle is very vicious to get proper, whether it be your diet, mental, physical or spiritual. But I always find that when my business is doing great, my personal is the worst. Or if my personal is doing great, my business is doing the worst. How do you guys manage and maintain? I know we talk about a schedule and stuff, but
Yeah, no, I love that you asked that question, because I just sat in this panel recently, and someone asked me a question. How do you balance it all, work, life? And I think it's losing two of those words out of that three word sentence. Like, you have to lose the work, you have to lose the life, and just find balance, man. You gotta focus on setting up good routines, setting up good schedules, and applying them to your work life, not just your personal life. It goes both ways.
yeah,
You got to think, like, we go through elementary school, junior high, high school, college, and everything's on a very structured schedule. You got to get up at 6 a.m. At 7:05, your bus picks you up. At 8 o'clock, your class starts first period. 9:34, you got 4 minutes to get to this next class. Like, you're very regimented. But then when we go into our own lives, we lose that.
yeah, less structure.
You don't have any structure. People don't live on schedules. So we're doing it at work, but we're not doing that at home. So you
Right.
got to like schedule in and pencil in that time to go work out, pencil in that time to take your spouse out.
Hard on it. You know what I mean? It's like, I think especially the trap with us with chefs is like we're all willing to put in the work for our businesses, for our restaurants, for our teams and all that. But it's like you got to be able to be willing to go home and put in the work on your relationship. Wake up early on a Saturday to go get coffee. Wake up early with the baby even though, you know, you came home late the night before. And it's like sacrifices can't just be made in one arena. They have to be made across the board. You have to be willing to push yourself in every aspect of your life. Otherwise, it's like, you know, if you're not pushing in all those ways, like they're not going to be successful.
Yeah.
You'll let them fall away too far.
Yeah, I feel the need to say, like, it almost feels like you're putting so much in. How do you maintain that balance? Like, you know, we're putting it all into the business and we're putting it all into, like, I can just imagine, like, you know, somebody like yourself who just had a kid, 1-year-old, like, you're exhausted. You know, how do you make sure that you're okay? What's the check and balance?
Ubers and airplanes. And you sleep when you can, and you just know, like,
it's a mindset.
I know, you know, I try to be very cognizant of what I need as me for me to still be happy. And I know, like, you know, like for my wife, she's an introvert. So it's like going out for her is very exhausting. She doesn't find it like refreshing. It's like, you know, if she goes out, she has a really good time and it's fine. She's super social. But then it's like when she gets home, she's like depleted. Where it's like for me, I'm an extrovert. So it's like I need to go out sometimes and just be out. Just be around people and be social and talk and hang and, you know, and like that recharges me. That refuels me as a person. So it's like I know I need a little bit of that, but I also know that I can totally overdo it on that. So it's like I have to be willing to sacrifice some of that to be able to, you know, handle a little bit more of being a husband, of being a father, of being a good partner to my wife.
Yeah, important.
And I think that's the trick of it, you know, and I don't know that there's an answer. It's just like you know, it's like a recipe. It's like the recipes might be a little different, but, you know, we're all trying to get to the same place.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah, you know, I've learned when I'm most down and I'm struggling the most mentally, it's because I've stopped doing the things that I love to do for myself.
Amen.
Right? And that could be working out, that could be playing golf, that could be riding the motorcycle. Like I haven't done those things in a while.
Yeah.
I'm lighting myself on fire to keep others warm.
Yeah. Wow.
You know, and that's something that I think is extremely important. You've got to find your release. What is that release? You know, where can you get that time for you? And it could be 20 minutes, it could be an hour, but you have to find that time for yourself just to do that mental check.
Yeah.
You know, and it could just be, you know, having a nice social night with the boys or the ladies. I mean, whatever it is, you got to find that time for it.
That's why I like, you know, like workouts. I like really high intensity things because it forces me to like shut my brain off and just worry about what I'm doing and be like so in the moment.
Yeah.
Like especially it's like 30 minutes. You're like so in the moment. You can't think about anything else. You can't think about service at night. You can't think about, you know, like, okay, what laundry's done? What do I still need to do? Is the house clean? Whatever. It's like 30 minutes of just like, you know, I think like coming out here and I think like skiing is one of the great ones because it's like
I love snowboarding.
Yeah.
Like once you get on that mountain, you start going downhill. It's like, at least for me, you know, somebody who doesn't live out here is not, you know, as good as you guys probably are at it. It's like all you're thinking about is trying not to fucking die. And there's something like massively therapeutic about that. Is you're just standing in this absolutely beautiful place. And you're just like, it is impossible to think about your worries, your cares, work, your finances, shit, because you were just ripping down a mountain with your ass on fire being like, man, I hope I don't fall off this mountain and die. And there's something like that's really peaceful about that for me. And maybe that's just because, I don't know, I'm a crazy person, but like that's like really like is so relaxing to me and it's so therapeutic for me. And it's like, you know, and it's just like those are the things that really, they bring me back to base. And it's like, when I come off of doing stuff like that, like even, you know, with my little workouts at home, I'll get in the shower and it's like, I'm more creative, I'm more productive, I'm, you know, more focused. And it's just, you got to find that.
Zeroing in, man. I feel like that's like that narrow vision and everything else is just blurred in when you're so focused like that. It's like running for me, it does that. It brings me back to that same mental.
You need that, you know, and for me, winters are always hard because, like, for me, it's golf. I just want to go play golf. Like, I like being outdoors. It's a game against yourself. it's there's no defense,
Yeah.
and it's all
yeah.
based on like your character. What kind of decisions do you make? Do you go for it,
Yeah.
or do you play it safe?
I
Do
go
you
for
walk?
it.
Yeah, you go for it, right? do you walk back to the cart and get the right tool for the job, or you
Yeah.
just use what's in your hand?
Hey,
Like,
we talked about
it's
that.
it's crazy, you know. I love that outlet, but when it's wintertime, man, I don't
It's
have
tough.
that, you
Yeah.
know. So I have to find other things to do for myself.
Man, mental health is a tough topic, and you've been very vulnerable about it. And after winning like Top Chef, did you have anything that you went through personally, Joe?
You know, it's a weird thing because your life kind of changes quickly, and you kind of have this large vat of notoriety thrown on you.
Yeah.
And so you just kind of, you know, and I'm super fortunate. I have an amazingly strong like family system, relationship system, and friend system where it's just like I have really, really good people in my life, and that's, you know, saved me my whole life. And and it's just like people who just kept me on the road. You know what I mean? They know who I am and they know what I'm about, and they're just like, you know, there's no bullshit with them. They don't care. I don't care what I did. You know what I mean? They're like, sweet, cool, you want Top Chef, but it's like, did you empty the dishwasher? No.
Yeah.
So like, fuck you.
It brings you back
like,
home.
you know,
yeah.
like, I don't know. Are we
We're
allowed to
still-
swear on this podcast?
Yeah, fuck
Yeah,
that.
so first.
Let's do it.
But like, so you know, for me, that was really, really important. But it was kind of overwhelming. It's like all this pressure now, and it's like, okay, I'm going to open this restaurant, and it's this huge, like, you know, there's still always this thing of people like, oh, you know, you're very successful, and I'm like, I haven't done anything yet.
Right.
Like, I don't have a restaurant. I have nothing to my name. I've run other people's restaurants, and like,
Right.
so now, you know, I think the act of cooking or the act of creating in any media is massively vulnerable. Like
Yeah.
you putting yourself out there, and it's something we do every day. We do it plate by plate, and we have to put ourselves out there, and we don't get to pick, you know, who consumes our media. So it's hard, you know, like with all of that. But I think it gives you a little bit of taste of it. So it's, you know, for me, it's just like always that feeling of like getting comfortable with being vulnerable, which is the thing I think, you know, one,
That's good.
as chefs, we do not learn coming up. And I think two, as men, we do not learn growing up. You know what I mean? It's always the opposite of that, of like, you know, hide it, shield it, block it. It's like, I think the people who do this best, the people who create best, are the best at, you know, or people, I guess, who know how to at least manage that vulnerability. I think that's always a big one for me.
Yeah. You know, I think you hit on something that was really important. You said you have a strong family support system. And that's something that stands out because I think a lot of us lose connection with family, right? We get into our careers, we get into, you know, the businesses, and we're traveling. You know, for me, I've actually started to rebuild this relationship with a lot of my family. They got me on this Marco Polo app, and I got like 75 cousins, and it's like the highlight of my day to get on there and kind of see, you know, what's happening in all of their lives and see their faces and, you know, be able to share with them. And I'm like reintroducing myself to my family that I haven't talked to some of these people in, you know, 15, 20 years. And it's just, it's mind blowing to me, the technology of how we can actually use that for that mental health. That's a big piece.
No, I think it's a big piece because I think it's people who, they know you better than anybody most times. It's like they know who you were, they know the people who you come from.
Yeah.
And it's like they see shit in you that they're like, I know. Like, you're acting like fucking grandpa right now. Like,
Yeah.
quit it. Like, you know, and you're like, all right. You know, and it's like they call you on stuff, and it's annoying.
They definitely call you out.
And you're like frustrated. It's like, yo, leave me alone. Like, I'm doing stuff. Like, you know, like they're like, yeah, well, nobody cares.
Man, I got into it the other day with a couple of my cousins on a late night bagging session, and it was just hilarious because, you know, we all go back to you know, childhood memories. So it's a good thing to have family in your life, and I think for those of us that have experienced family that has, you know, broken trust or, you know, hurt you or something, man, you got to let those walls down because it's still blood, like it's still family. You got to rebuild those relationships, and some of them, you know, they need time. Those wounds need to heal.
Yeah.
But, you know, family, I think is a big piece.
Man, family's the foundation. I think something that you said was being vulnerable or being comfortable being in an uncomfortable situation or being vulnerable. And like remending some of those relationships, you have to be extremely vulnerable. You have to be the bigger person.
Yeah.
You know, and those things come with a lot of mental health, battles.
Yeah. I've started to challenge myself to be the first one to pick up the phone.
Yeah.
And I push until I can tell myself I've done everything I can to try to, it's not on me no more. I've tried to fix it. I think that's important. You got to have that initiative.
It's like, it's like anything else where you're gambling. You got to be willing to take a loss. Like,
Yeah.
You got to know that's part of it. And it sucks, but it's like you got to, otherwise you just don't do it.
Yeah.
And it's like, what the fuck's the point? And it's like, that's what our whole business is. It's like we bet on ourselves every day. We put it all in, and it's like, if something falls, it's like we take a big loss on it, but it's like we believe in ourselves and keep pushing ourselves. And, like, that's it. That's all we got.
Yeah.
When I think people don't realize, too, like, especially as a chef, people don't realize how vulnerable we are, right? We put ourselves out there every day to be judged.
Yeah.
In the public, right? We're putting our food out there, and there's platforms everywhere for you to critique us.
And it's
we
like
read
by
it.
name. It's not just like, oh, man, I hate McDonald's. It's like I was at Brother Luck's restaurant, and I had Brother's food, and I thought it was, whatever,
Yeah.
And sometimes it's great, but it's like you also can't listen to that shit too much, too, because it's like,
not taking it personal.
Like I ran a Michelin star restaurant in Chicago, cooking Italian food, and it's like we would have people come in and be like, oh, my God, this is so much better than Alinea. And I'm like, okay, no, it's not. But, like, and then people come in and be like, Olive Garden's better than this. And it's like, okay, no, it's not. You know what I mean? So it's like, you're like, where do we fall in the range from being out, worse than Olive Garden and better than Alinea?
Yeah.
Like somewhere in the middle, I hope. So it's like, it's weird.
I gotta say this is just because it's like mental health is something that I'm going through right now, extremely like in depth. But something that I think is pretty interesting is like the yin and yang sign, like the order and chaos, and finding that balance between the two. What do you guys think of that?
No, it's huge. I mean, it's just nonstop. You're always having to challenge yourself in that.
Yeah, and the reason why I say that is because kind of like what you're saying with the people who are praising your food and then the people who are disrespecting your food. It's like it's everything, but it's nothing at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even your great things are nothing, and even your terrible things are nothing. You know what I'm saying? Or
No,
everything.
for sure.
You know what I'm
It's
saying? It's like that balance.
Yeah, and that's it. It's like you take it all with a grain of salt, and you're like, this can't define me.
Amen.
This can't be where I look for, the validation that I need.
Sure.
I think we were talking about it last night. I think you said, you said at one point you thought, you needed Top Chef for validation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I don't.
No.
And, it's a great marketing tool and it's a great piece, but it's like, it doesn't mean shit about you as a person. And it's like a game. It's like, it's like the best team doesn't always win the NCAA tournament.
That's
right. It's like sometimes you get hot at the right time.
Right.
So it's like, that's a lot of it. And it's like, and it doesn't validate you. It doesn't give you anything over anyone except marketing value in dollars.
Sure.
And like, that's what it gives you. But if you think it gives you anything else than that, like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've also learned to, to find that inner love, man. Like, I've had to learn how to tell myself, like, love yourself.
Yeah.
Like, and find joy and happiness in that, because I think that's a big piece. But one of the tricks that I've actually done over the last year is I've actually removed a lot of the notifications from my email and my phone pop-ups when it comes to comments.
Yeah, me
right?
too.
Because I miss the days where I would go to work and, at the end of my shift, I would do my emails and I would close down my desktop and I would go home.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a message popping up every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It was when I got back the next morning, I would check it.
Yeah.
I miss those days. So I feel like we have to get back to that with our phones, is you've got to turn the work off.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the things we tried to do is trusting the people around you wholeheartedly and saying, okay, if I'm leaving, I'm trusting the restaurant to you. And you got to make decisions when I'm not here, and you got to live or die by those decisions too. But you have to stand behind them. And and also, I'm gonna hold you accountable to that shit. Like, if you fuck it up, we're gonna have a conversation about this. And it's like, but if it's not massive, it's gonna be like, hey, listen, we've all been there. We've all, because in this stuff, it's like restaurants. It's like, I think one of the wildest things, and brother can speak to this too, is like we've staged in kitchens in different countries, and it's all the same shit.
Yeah.
No matter where you are in the world, it's still like you go out with those cooks for service after service for a couple beers, and it's like everybody's like somebody's girlfriend's mad at them, somebody's boyfriend's mad at them, nobody's making enough money.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to pay rent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
everybody's kind of looking for the next thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it's like, I think like it's, trusting those people around you and teaching them to do the right thing. And, like people at your restaurant knowing like, hey, when I'm gone for the night, like this is me now.
Yeah.
And like they have to make these decisions and I trust them. And you have to trust them now too.
I used to have a boss who used to say, hey, I'm going home. If you guys get busy, work harder. Don't call me.
Yeah.
I'm out. Yeah, getting out of the way of your team, I think is key. Too many of us micromanage, especially as chefs. I mean, we're ridiculous with it, but we have great people that we hire. Allow them to be great.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna make you great.
And I think the more time, the thing towards my end at Spiaggia, I was like, I just want to spend more time. Like, I want to feel like I taught somebody something every day. And just like that I'm spending time with my cooks teaching them things. So that every day I'm taking the time to get my hands on someone else's stations and be like, let me help you do this a little bit better.
Yeah.
And like, coaching someone up a little bit more. And I think like those are the little victories for chefs, and I think those are like really good mental things for us too, where it's like you have those little tangible things that because you can get caught in the monotony of it all too. It's like
Absolutely.
Okay, open the restaurant, set it up, do service, shut it down, clean the restaurant, count the money.
Sure.
It's like so it can get very mundane, and I think it's finding those little victories every day, and appreciating that we get to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's, also I think a huge part of the mental game in this industry is that
God, that's so important right there.
I think like we have to have an appreciation that we get to do this for a living. We chose to do this for a living. We could do other things. You know, we live in a place where we got to choose what we wanted to do for a living. People's options are, definitely, some people are more limited than others, but, we got to choose what we want to do for a living, and we do it every day. We should be
100%.
grateful for that.
Yeah.
We should appreciate that. Me and brother, we saw someone in our lives who we lost who it's like, in their last hours or last day, all they wanted to do was go, run one more service, have one more
that's
normal
so
day.
powerful.
You know what I mean? Sit in the kitchen, cook dishes, talk shit, and just, like, hang out. And it's like I think about that every day. Like, we get to come to work. We get to do what we want. If you don't want to do this, cool. This shit isn't for everybody.
Yeah.
Go do something else. Find that thing that you want to do and that you're grateful
that it is
to do
worth
every
it.
day.
Yeah.
And and that's what, that's what this is for me. And that's what, I think keeps me in a really, really good and strong mental headspace is that, I'm grateful I get to do this every day.
Yeah.
And, I keep, you never know. When's your last day of the kitchen? It's like, so I'm grateful for every day I get to wake up and cook and do what I love and, provide for my family doing that. I mean, that's the dream.
Yeah, you've got to. I think the moment you can really say that you found the right career is when you can work a 16, 17-hour shift and not even notice it.
Yeah.
Like the time just flew by.
Yeah.
You were enjoying yourself so much. Like you're in the right career field. If you've got days like that, you're doing what you need to be doing.
And listen, time away, vacation, and balance is important. But, it's like every time I'd go away from the restaurant, I'm like, man, I can't wait to see everybody.
Yeah.
I can't wait to get back
in the grind.
You know what I mean? And, like, back into, like I miss my kitchen and I miss my crew. And, right now, as I build out my restaurant and being like a stay-at-home dad, it's like I miss that so much. Like just being here today, being in the kitchen this morning, and that silent time of the early kitchen in the early day, where it's like you're just taking that time. It's peaceful. It's calm. You're getting those little prep things done. It's just the chefs here. Before the cooks even get here, before anybody else gets here, it's like you're having your coffee, listening to music. Like it's just like those are the really special times.
Yeah, for the cooks. Man, something that Chef said recently in one of our podcasts, as well as Joe just said tonight, is doing something like where you're teaching, another person, but putting them in front, and giving to them, whether it be teaching or appreciating those times. So putting somebody else in front of you will help you mentally as well. Speak on that.
Yeah, man. you've got to make other people successful.
Yeah, you
That's
always
what's going
do
to make
that,
you
man.
successful. That's what's going to make you happy. I've found the greatest joy in making other people successful.
Yeah,
And I don't care if it's a student, if it's a cook, it's a business owner.
yeah.
You know, when I get the opportunity to showcase somebody, you know, I want to see them do great because
Yeah.
it's going to make me feel good internally. And that's
Mhm.
the real happiness that I'm searching for. It's not about my ego. It's not about, you know, my notoriety. Like, all that stuff comes with making other people successful. And I think that's important.
I think, you know, as Charlie Trotter said, you know, people, they aren't going to remember the food you make, but they're going to remember the people you put out.
100%.
And I think that's a really, really smart adage. And I think what I like about our generation of chefs, restaurateurs, business owners is I think we are even more engaged in that. You know, when we were coming up, it was very much like when you were starting to look for a new job, you had to be very secretive about it. You couldn't tell people about it. You couldn't tell people you were staging because if they found out, they would just fire you.
Right.
You know, which is like,
terrible.
you know,
but
that's,
yeah.
you know, like this isn't the kind of, you know, climate that we want to facilitate. And so, you know, with us, a big thing was like when somebody, you know, if somebody made it a year after their first year, I'd always sit them down and be like, okay, this is your second year and probably your last year here. So what's year 3? Where do you want to go? How do we get there together?
Wow.
What are your goals?
That's big.
And so I think that's, you know, really important is that we take care of the people under us, because then it's like if you do right by them, then you're going to get that person back.
100%.
And I go, if nothing else, and if you don't get them back, now you got a whole crew of talented people in your city. Now you have
100%.
more great restaurants. You have more, you know, more like just money coming to everybody because people are going to come to that city to eat. The more better restaurants there are.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, it's what it's about.
Yeah, man. I always get a kick out of that because some way, somehow, you always find a way to pull it back to the next person, and it's so powerful, man. But man, we have Top Chef dinner tonight. Joe, I wanted you to have an opportunity to speak about your restaurant. You got a restaurant coming up? What's going on?
Yeah, so we're building out, we start construction in like 2 weeks. We're building out a restaurant in the Fulton Market area in Chicago, which is really exciting for me. It's one of the hottest neighborhoods there. I started working in the West Loop 10 years ago when I opened Grill and the Goat, and then I spent another 2 years after that there opening Belly Q and Urban Belly. So it's kind of, you know, it almost feels like a homecoming of sorts for me to get back in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is, the concept is, you know, I spent the last 5.5 years doing Italian food, but actually my wife is Croatian. And so I kind of fell in love with the idea of doing Croatian food because there's a big population in Chicago, but nobody's really doing it. There's not a restaurant that's really engaged in it. So I wanted to use all of the Italian techniques I've learned to kind of tell this other story. So using those to tell, you know, more of a Balkan food story. So we're building this beautiful, big custom hearth, you know, cooking over charcoal. We're going to have, you know, great pastas, seafood. And it's just, you know, really kind of more of a raucous wine bar atmosphere of just like that fun, you know, casual spot where you could stop in, have a fun dinner with, you know, your crew, just with your girl, your husband, whatever. Or just pop into the bar and be like, I'm going to have a glass of wine, maybe a little charcuterie, and be on my way.
Awesome.
And that's a great way to find joy, to really start to control, you know, the protecting that mental health. I mean, because you're getting to create this restaurant now that is telling your story, right? You said the reason that you want to do Croatian is because your wife's Croatian. Like, you're immediately putting the love into the restaurant because of the love for your
That
spouse.
is the story, man. That's the
And
story to
that's-
sell.
And, you know, it was funny. It was kind of, I always joke that I tricked my partners because when I first talked to them and I pitched them, I said, hey, I want to open this Italian restaurant. And they were like, yeah, totally, blah, blah, blah. We're in. So the first day I got them in the room, I said, okay, guys, this Italian restaurant isn't really an Italian restaurant. It's kind of a Italian-Croatian restaurant. They're like, what? And then I, you know, kind of told them my whole story. I said, this is, you know, a story that needs to be told, and it's based in Italian techniques, and it makes sense, and this is what I want to do. And they were like, all right, we're in.
No, and it's perfect, too, because, like, when I first read you were going to do a Croatian restaurant, I was like, man, that's so raw and different. And I think especially in a city like Chicago, you have to stand out.
And I think, you know, for me, it's like, my favorite thing about cooking is like, you know, and you know this about me, is like I love telling stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that about food. I love traditions. I love history. And I think like that's, one of the main reasons I got into food, because it was just, it was edible history. And it's,
it's a cool way to look at it.
It's like, and I love the idea of going into another cuisine. And every cuisine I've worked in so far has been completely different from the last. And so it's like being into dive deep into it, do the research. Like, I love that shit.
Yeah.
And being able to give people dishes that tell a story and speak of a time and a place, I think is really, really interesting. And, coming from fine dining, where it's like, I think there's kind of two types of fine dining, where there's one, it tells a story, and two, provokes thought. And I think that's, you have the more avant-garde, the Grant Achatses, the, Blackbirds of the world, where they're doing more like provocative. They want to make you think. They want to make your brain itch, where it's, I kind of always fell in love with, like, we're going to take you on this, like, little journey. We're going to give you, you're coming to Spiaggia, and we're going to teach you about what we do. We're going to teach you about Italy. You're going to feel a part of this culture for a moment in time of your life.
Yeah.
And that's, what I want this place to have a little bit of too, where it's like, we're going to tell you these stories. We're going to take you to this time and place and give you a little taste of it, and let you, whether it's something you're like, oh, you've been missing, you grew up with it, maybe, your relatives don't cook it anymore or whatever.
Right.
Or it's something you've never seen, and you're like, wow, this is
Never
new,
tried
and
it
this is an
before.
experience I never knew I wanted, and this is incredible.
Yeah, I always say this. One of the coolest experiences I had on Top Chef was in an interview, and the producer asked me, he said, brother, I watch you cook, and I understand your food so much more when you explain it to me. He's like, I don't understand what you're doing or why you did it, but like when I talk to you, it makes way more sense.
Yeah.
He goes, do you think you're chasing the ghost of your past?
Oh shit.
And I've never forgotten that. Like that's one of the greatest statements I think when it comes to food is, you're connecting to your memory, of others, of yourself.
Yeah.
And you're able to actually tell that story in an experience.
I think it's one of my favorite things about cooking is, like, when you cook a dish where it's like there's so many things, and they're tied to memory, whether it's a dish you cooked with relatives growing up, or just like, you're like, oh man, we used to cook this dish when I worked at that restaurant, and it takes you back to being in that basement and butchering fish, or being on that line and, cooking pasta, or over that grill. And, just like, it brings you back to people who maybe, aren't in your life anymore, or moved on to different things. And it's like, it's just like a scrapbook, of like dishes, where it's like when you go back and you revisit those, like, it's so fun. You're like, oh man, yeah, I remember the first time the first chef showed me how to do this. The first time, we broke down tuna together and we sliced it, we loined it out. And it's like, so when you get to bring that to someone else and create that with them, it's so, so special. And I think it's just, it's so fulfilling.
Absolutely.
I love it. Hey, real quick, I want to touch base real quick, because you said it's your wife's ethnicity that you're building it off of, and then you have your kid coming up, so it's like you're building this legacy and this foundation that they can grow into and learn their own heritage through your restaurant. I think that's really intriguing as well.
Yeah, I think it's, I grew up, my family is Irish, Italian, and German. And, we never really, there wasn't, the Irish traditions are, we tell stories and we drink, and that's really our only exports. And the German side we knew nothing about, but the Italian side was very much a part of our life all the time. All our traditions were Italian, Feast of the Seven Fishes, ravioli on Thanksgiving.
Really? That's cool.
And that was really, really important to me. It still is really important to me. It's still, my grandmother's 91, and, it's still stuff we do together. And it's really special to have that. And, I want my family to be able to have that too. I want my son to have those traditions and those memories and those things we do. And I think that's, a really, really important part of it. And I think the other part of it is a conversation I had with a chef when I was in Italy. It was this woman, Nadia Santini. They run this 100-year-old 3 Michelin star restaurant in a town of 34 people, where everyone in the town, their last name is Santini.
Oh, that's
only
crazy.
the family is allowed to buy in the town. And then people come out to this restaurant. But she was telling me, like, she's probably 60, and she's, a female chef in a generation that, there was no 3 Michelin star female chefs, especially not in Italy. And so I was like, why did you get into this? Why did you, write cookbooks? Why did you, take over this restaurant? And one of the things she told me, and I thought it was so beautiful, she goes, my generation of women, we were one of the first where we all went to work,
Yeah.
and the grandparents raised our children. He's like, so my mother cooked for my kids growing up, and so many other, mothers in this town, like their mothers cooked for their kids. Well, as their kids got older and as those women became grandmas themselves, they didn't know the recipes anymore because they were at work when their grandmas were cooking for their kids. So their kids want these things for their kids, and they're like, we don't have these recipes. And she's like, that's when I wrote my first cookbook, so that these women would have these recipes so that they could cook their mother's food. And when I started learning about Croatia, it reminded me so much of that, because there's been so much, they've gone, the country's been so many places and so many things have been chopped up so many times and come back to life, that there's just so many stories that, so many connections to food there that have been lost. And I was like, man, maybe we can, help, close that gap a little bit with this.
Yeah, that's powerful. Go ahead, Chef.
I love that, because for me, a big part of my healing with my mental health has been truly discovering who I am, right?
Yeah.
I've always felt lost.
Identity. We
my
talked
identity.
about that.
Yeah.
Huh?
I've always felt lost on not really knowing my culture, and being biracial and not fitting into, black community or white community. I've always felt like an outcast.
Right.
And, I really got into exploring that history and understanding, my heritage is Creole, and my family is British, African, and French.
Yeah.
That's a big part of our family. And I started to understand, what is Creole, who was Creole. And what's powerful for me is, Creole people in this country, Louisiana Creole, were the first people of color to own property and to actually have an education.
Mm-hmm.
And when the Louisiana Purchase happened, that's where they lost a lot of those rights. So they became advocates for the black community, and they were the ones who actually spoke up or taught and opened doors.
Yeah.
And I was having this discussion with some of my family members, that's one of the things that I feel is even more important now as an adult, is to not forget that storyline, because I have to open those doors now for the current community, the current
100%.
people, right? I get access to a lot of things. Who are you bringing along?
Yeah. Hey, real quick, man, some of the core principles of No Luck's Given here on the podcast is pride, courage, perseverance, and determination. So thinking about those core principles, how do you think, well, obviously, pride has a big component of mental health. How do you guys handle those things? Pride, courage, perseverance, and determination.
Perseverance is huge, man. That's I take it on as a personal challenge.
Yeah.
I want to get through whatever somebody's throwing at me or whatever I'm dealing with. I want to overcome and fight through it.
Tony Mantuano told me once, he was like, he ran Spiaggia for 35 years, and he goes, after a while, it's just perseverance. He goes, when you're the only one still around, he's like, I don't know if I'm one of the best. He goes, but there's no one else left to debate it.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm still here. I'm still standing.
Yeah.
He's like, so, it's like, who do you look around to compare me to? He's like, I get put into a lot of things. And he goes,
strong.
And he goes, and I think I've done really good things here. And he has. He's definitely amazing. He's one of the best.
We're drinking tequila because of him right now.
like hands down, one of the goats. And just but he goes, so much of it is just staying in the fight, staying in the game. Yeah. And he's like, and I just kept going. And he's like, a lot of people dropped out, whether, for whatever reasons, he's like, and I just kept going. And he's like, and that's why I'm me, and that's why I'm here. And that's why, at 65, I still get to mentor, young chefs like you.
Yeah.
And that was, super important to him. And I was like,
that's huge.
And I think he was also a great, advocate of of managing your pride and saying, this isn't about me.
Mm-hmm.
This is about, the restaurant is bigger than me.
Sure.
And it's about the people inside of it.
Yeah.
It's about the culture here. It's
100%.
It's not about everything being Tony Mantuano's. And he was never like flexing oh, well, this is my, fucking menu. He was like, no, Joe wrote this menu. This is, whatever.
He's always amazing.
Didn't care. And it wasn't about that. It was being prideful in that the restaurant was doing well
Yeah.
that we were, carrying on a legacy that was so important to him, and that we carried the torch in a way that he believed in and progressed it. And I thought, like, that to me was like, that's what your pride should be.
Yeah.
Not that shit getting in your way, like, making you, whatever, throw bricks through people's windows and shit.
Yeah.
That's big.
I find a lot of pride, too, in the people that are around me.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that keeps me, confident and courageous is I'm very proud of the people that we're developing and the people that we keep around us and, keeping their attention. Like that's just something that is so strong, because when you look at someone like Tony, I was reading something the other day where like it was a dish he did in like 1985 and it was dope. I was like, this dude's cooking this food when I was 2 years old.
Yeah.
You can't knock.
It's like the first dude in the U.S. who cooked a farfalle. People were like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Bow tie pasta? This is insane. He was like, yeah, it's a farfalle.
Yeah, but, we have to constantly think about that when we're developing our next generation. I sat in this advisory board yesterday, and we were talking about the restaurant culture. And, I think it's broken. I think what we've been doing for many years is we have a labor shortage because people don't want to work in this industry.
Yeah.
They were mistreated. They were experiencing harsh conditions and, things that could have been prevented. And now as restaurant owners, like we have the ability to change that scenario, and we're talking about programs with junior highs and high school students. And,
Right.
I don't think it's just teaching them culinary. It's teaching them to be business people. It's teaching them to be professionals. It's teaching them to be entrepreneurs at that level and not just saying, hey, I'm going to bring you in as a cook.
Right.
It's also just teaching them to be adults.
Yeah, that's a big
This is
part.
like a shit where
Amen.
it's like,
No shit, right?
it's like a lot of it is like, a lot of these people, it's like barely graduated high school or,
And they don't
or
have
just
nobody
went to
doing
high
that.
school or they
So
didn't
it's
go to
big.
college and you didn't have, I think part of college is just maturing. It's just like, some of it's just like some age and being around people and being around new ideas and people from different backgrounds. And I think
100%.
you thrust people into a restaurant, and I think one of the great things about it is you write all those people down on paper, where they're from, what they've been through. It's like they have no business being in the same room together.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
it doesn't
yeah,
make
yeah,
any sense. There's
yeah.
no road maps where, these 9 assholes are all hanging out.
Right.
But, you throw a restaurant into the mix, it's like, yeah, okay.
It works.
Like, one of the guys who I've known longest in my life is this crazy dishwasher named Ron Johnson, who's like, it was like a guy I met my first day working at Table 52 when I was a week into culinary school. And I was like, I'm never going to see this motherfucker again. It's like, I still see that dude, every day when he worked for me at Spiaggia. Like, he worked for all my friends. And it's just like those weird things. And it's like,
Yeah.
that like, you just never know, but it's like, so I think it's part of it. It's just, what we had to learn coming up, and I felt like that was a huge part of it for me. It's just learning how to be a person who's held accountable,
Yeah.
a person who, can be relied on, like, and just becoming an adult.
Yeah.
I love it. There's one thing that I will say that I want to pull is a lot of mental health, a lot of the depression, or the idea of what we're talking about kind of comes back to that perseverance. Like, if you hold that perseverance tight, like there's nothing, that could stop you. You will be the last one standing.
Yeah, and you also got to realize, man, you're not alone. Like,
Talk to
I
him.
think that's something that hit me hard was I was so in my own head and thought I was crazy about how I was feeling inside.
Yeah.
And when I finally dropped a guard and started, like, I joined this group where I was sitting with these other guys that I thought I had nothing in common with.
Right.
And I realized, like, the stuff that they were talking about and sharing in this, this small group, I was feeling the same way.
Yeah.
Right? I was not alone. So I think that's why it's important to share, because people need to know they're not crazy.
I think that's a big part of, like, having these
Part of that-
discussions, man.
That vulnerability is like,
Yeah.
being like, I think it's being open without being negative. It's not like, I think
Say that
like,
again. That's big. Say
Yeah,
that
that was
again.
powerful.
being open without being negative. It's like not just like unloading on people and like bitching and be like, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. But being like, man, this is what I am struggling with.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
and I think that's a really hard conversation to have. Is like, there's been points, after Top Chef, I was so busy and there's so many things going on. And like, Hillary would be like, are you okay?
Yeah.
She's like, you are going 1,000,000 miles an hour right now. I
Yeah.
was working full time. She was pregnant. you know, I was traveling like crazy. I was flying, like I would work service, go to the airport, fly out, take a flight back in, straight to the restaurant, work service, go home. You know what I mean? Like just going nonstop. And she's like, you okay? And I was like, yes. I go, I am okay. I go, everything's fine if everything stays fine. I go, if something goes wrong, I go, it's going to go real wrong because I'm going way too fast right now.
Yeah.
I go, but in this moment, I'm like, I'm okay. But it's like I knew that, like, and it felt good to be honest with her, like, hey, yeah, I know I'm riding the line right now.
Yeah.
And I know.
In between order
like,
and chaos.
You know what I mean? Like, if I, like, hit a bump here, like, if I wipe out, it's going to be fucking massive.
Yeah, yeah.
But, like, if I can just kind of hold this on,
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean?
Turn out
Like,
great.
this is gonna
We
smooth
push it
out.
so
like, I
hard.
just got to get,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, get some of this speed out of the legs and we'll be okay. Like,
I like that. I like that a lot. Go ahead, Chef.
You know, that was a big piece too that I actually had to learn coming off of the show was like you feel this requirement to travel and be at every food festival and show up at every event and go cook all over the country and do as much media as you can, and you burn yourself out, man.
Yeah.
I was burnt. I was done. And
Mental health go crazy.
I had to learn how to say no, man. Staying in those hotels by myself and being in my head and being away from the people that cared about me, like,
and you end up places where you're not happy to be there.
yeah.
Right.
And you see so many of these chefs at these events, they're like, they're not excited to be there or they're not happy to be there. And then it's like, you shouldn't be doing this then.
Right.
If I'm doing something, if I'm going somewhere, like brother was like, do you want to come out and do this? And I was like, hell yeah. Because like, I wanted to see him.
Yeah.
I want to see T. I want to see his restaurant.
Yeah.
I wanted to come cook with him
Yeah.
because I know my restaurant's about to start up and it's like, I'm going to be buried for a year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, let's do this now. We can go to Denver. We can see Carrie. I can't wait to come out.
Yeah.
But like, that's for me is like how you have to make those decisions. But coming off Top Chef, it's just nonstop of like,
Yeah.
well, do I have to do this just to stay at this level of notoriety?
Right.
Do I have to do this to keep growing my brand?
Right,
Like, and you know, you have almost like an insecurity with it of like, if I say no to these things now, do they never come back?
Right. Right.
And I think that, you know, was a big, I mean, at least
The
speaking
pressure.
for myself, at least, like, that was a big part of it. Is like, well, can I say no to this? Will they never ask again? And like having to have enough belief in yourself. Well, it's like, well, I'm going to do more shit.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
I
I'm
like that.
and like it's like almost like self-worth of like,
Yeah.
you know, it's like they're going to want me to come back because like what I'm going to do is going to be important and impactful.
I love
Yeah.
it.
Well, and the other thing too is you watch social media and you see what everybody else is posting, you know,
Yeah,
their
yeah,
greatest
yeah.
hits, and you're like, man, I need to be out there doing more. I need to go
can
do this.
more.
But it's like most of the stuff that happens on social media is like it's fake. It's not real.
They weren't happy
right?
to be there.
They weren't
can't-
happy to be
No,
there.
and
Yeah.
it's like you can't use it as a comparison.
Yeah.
I feel like you can use it as a motivator.
Sure.
You can use it as an appreciator.
Yeah.
But like you can't fucking look at it and go like, shit, that's where that person's at.
Yeah.
Like, and use it as like, well, like, why am I not at that event? Why didn't I get invited
Yeah.
to this?
That's a
It's like,
wormhole you don't want to go down.
because that's when it gets like, you're like, shit, the people, you know, they don't care about me, but they care about, you know, him or her or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you can't look at it like that. You have to say like, well, I'm happy to, you know what I mean? Like, I'm genuinely happy to be where I am right now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know how they feel. I hope they're happy to be where they
Right.
are right now.
Yeah,
hope-
I mean,
you know what I mean?
even this weekend, like, right, we're here in Colorado, and I'm so stoked to be here because this is a great weekend. What we're doing between Colorado Springs and Denver, but like, there's also South Beach Food and Wine Festival going on,
Yeah.
and right now on our social media accounts is everyone that we follow or partners with are all down there posting pictures, and it's easy to look at that and be like, why am I not invited,
Right.
or why am I not doing it? But then
It's,
I'm so much more happier.
yeah. I was just
But-
gonna say it's like that
Also,
balance.
like
Of,
South Beach, you know what the most popular saying is?
what's that?
I'm never doing this fucking festival.
I think that goes for a lot of them.
That's, I feel like, the number one. Because it's like, yo, it's like, we need you to make 3,000 portions of this. It's like,
Right.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
No, it's
What?
hard.
it's like
It's in the-
145 with 90% humidity down here.
You can't get through
And I'm
it.
hungover.
Right. I'm getting sunburnt inside this building.
It's that balance though, man. And we're gonna wrap this up, but it's the balance of like when you're feeling those lows and you didn't get that invite, everything is nothing, nothing's everything. It's the same thing as when you feel so great, you shouldn't feel too great. It balances out. And really, I think that something that I'm gonna kick off here is, brings me back to that treading the fine line of order and chaos within the, yin and yang. It's just something that's on my mind lately. But here, let's go ahead and give our fans some tangible action. What can they do to work on their mental health? What is something that you would just give words of encouragement for somebody who is dealing with, depression or things of that nature? I'll give it both to you guys, and we'll wrap this up.
Yeah, man, you gotta find the help, right? There's professionals out there that are amazing. My therapist is one of the greatest things that I do for myself. But I always like to live by that saying of, if it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you.
That's a good one.
I think that's something that you have to look at when you're talking about your health in general, right?
Yeah.
From your physical to your mental to your spiritual. Like, 100%. You've got to find balance in those, but you've got to challenge yourself.
I like that. Joe, what you got?
Yeah, I think brother made a great point, because I always think about, one of my buddies is CPD, and, he worked at a district where they lost 5 officers in his first, 14 months on the job.
Wow.
And he's like, I had to start going to therapy. I'm like, yeah, dude, like, you need to talk to someone. It's an important part of it. And I akin it to, it's like, some people don't need a trainer to work out. Yeah. I need a trainer to work out. If I don't have somebody holding me accountable, I won't go to the gym. I won't do it. But if I have somebody there, they can push me to do things that I just can't believe I can get done. I'll see results. I'll make it happen. And I think it's the same thing with mental health. It's like, you have to figure out what that thing is. Like, whether it's like you need a professional, because that's the level, you you need for that person to push you. Whether it's somewhere it's like you can just have a buddy, and it's like the same thing. It's it's a component of your body and health. It's like, and it's just different for different people and how they're able to handle it and, compartmentalize it or whatever. And I think, like, it's so important to identify, like, what do you need as a person for that to be healthy?
That's
and
powerful.
And I think that's the biggest one. And like, people realizing, like, it's not the same for everyone.
Yeah. The beauty of going to a therapist is this is someone who's not judging you and has nothing to gain from that session of hearing you share what's going on. Like, sometimes it's hard to share it with your spouse or your friends. That's what's nice about working with a professional is, you're able to actually just voice some stuff out and get it off your chest and then reflect on it and find direction.
I love that.
But it's like you're getting shit done. It's like the same way I feel about, like, a trainer. It's like they're gonna make you spend the most 45 productive minutes working on your mental health. It's just going to be about your mental health. It's not going to be about anything else. And they're going to push you.
Yeah, that's powerful.
And they're going to push you past what your comfort level is. And I think that's a good therapist and that's a good trainer. It's like just past that line of, like, what you're comfortable with. Yeah. And, like, that's when, like you're saying, when you get that challenge, it's like that's when you grow.
Man, that awareness to know what you need and to be courageous enough to go get it, put your pride aside, and, ultimately I think those are the principles that, help mental health. Man, this was a great podcast. Thank you guys for the episode. Myself, Danny Keith, official Danny Keith on Instagram. We'll go around the table. Chef Brother Luck.
Yeah, make sure to follow me on all platforms at Chef Brother Luck. You can check it out. # No Luck's Given.
No Luck's Given. # No Luck's Given. Joe Flamm, what's your Instagram, baby?
At insta.flam. You can find me on the Instagram, on the Twitters, on
Look,
the
guys,
Facebook.
No
Just
Luck's
go to
Given
Chicago, ask anybody
podcast.
you want to talk to Joe, they'll find me.
Give us some motherfucking ratings, some likes, comments, share this bad motherfucker, because more people are dealing with this than ever, and we're hitting some tough topics because it's No Luck's Given, baby. Appreciate y'all. We got a dinner to get to. Peace and love. I love y'all motherfuckers. Peace.
All right.
The man behind the hustle and grind. This is pride, courage, determination, and perseverance. Welcome to No Luck's Given.